Hey everyone, so super excited today to go through the study that I've just found and review the study, what they did, but also how this is linking into something that I've already discovered through taking my clients that have anxiety or panic and how we can actually improve their ability to control that and also to relieve the symptoms on that. So if you're a person that struggles with high levels of stress, anxiety or panic, make sure you tune in. So in this paper here, was talking about how hypoventilation can be used as a form of training to expose people to levels of stress in terms of dyspnea, which we call air hunger or shortness of breath, to relieve panic. And why is that important? Well, panic disorder is actually a bit of a unique phenomenon when it comes to the anxiety disorders because it usually presents as something physical first. So someone noticed their heart rate beating or their breathing kind of get a little bit faster, and that can start to cause a cascade of events where people feel as if they're losing control, and eventually that leads to a feeling of potentially even dying. Now, Tyson Fury is a well-known world heavyweight boxer, probably one of the best there's ever been in my opinion. And he has talked about this often. He's talked about when he went through his mental health problems with anxiety, he was sat in a van with his best friend. And as he was driving, he started to notice that he was feeling his heart rate. And all of a sudden, he started to have on this feeling that he was going to have this impending doom, that he was going to die. His hands started to kind of cramp up. And his friend said to him, "Hey, look, I think you're having a panic attack." And Tyson Fury was demanding that they take him to hospital and to take him to hospital because he was going to die. And that was the end of it. His friend was then saying to him, "Hey, well, you don't need to go to hospital. We actually just need to slow your breathing down. You need to relax." It had gone so far and so extreme with Tyson Fury that then Tyson Fury started to have paranoid thoughts that the individual, his best friend at the time, I think he's even his best friend now, was in on it, and actually someone was trying to kill him. This is the extent that people can get conditioned to the internal sensations of their body. And these internal sensations that we have are what called a sense we call interoception. People with anxiety, what tends to happen, there's two theories. They're either hypersensitive to these sensations, so the heart beats and it's almost like they can feel it and they can hear it in their head, or they're less sensitive to the anxieties sensations, these interoceptive sensations, like such as change in breath rate, but then all of a sudden they come on drastically. There's another thing called interoceptive accuracy, and that's being able to relate the sensations to the actual occurrence that's going on. So if you're a sports athlete, for example, you might get a fast heart rate and might get a fast breathing rate before you go out to the pitch, or before you go to a meeting, or before you go to give a presentation. If you then believe that to be, impending doom of death or anxiety, where there's some kind of sickness in your body, your accuracy is off, because actually we need stress in those situations to kind of get us to take action. So back to the study. So what did they do? Well, they took 35 individuals with a panic disorder and also an array of anxiety disorders, and they measured their baseline level of carbon dioxide. And we know that when individuals have low levels of carbon dioxide, they're suffering from what's called hypoventilation, over-breathing throughout the day. Individuals that overbreathe, they have low levels of CO2, so their baseline level of carbon dioxide in their body shifts. So they become more sensitive to changes in metabolic gases in their bodies, and therefore when CO2 rises, say through a breath hold or for any other reason, or it drops even further, this can start to trigger for suffocation or falsification alarms within our brain, which then cascade to the panic attacks. What they did is then they exposed them to underbreathing. So they measured their CO2 during 17 minutes of breathing. They had 5 minutes rest. Then they had 10 minutes of breathing at respiratory rate to a metronome that was bleeping, so they could breathe in and out and timed. And then following that, they removed the timer and they kept that pace going for as long as they want. They had to do this twice a day for 4 weeks. Initially, what happened when they did this study is that their CO2 levels dropped even further, meaning that the individual, despite having a lower breathing rate, compensated by having a larger depth. This change altered over a training effect over a period of time, meaning that the individual could learn through feedback that they were breathing too deeply. And they were then asked to continue to breathe really slow, light, and shallow to create an air hunger. That air hunger was then measured between 0 and 10, and the individual was exposed to that air hunger for a period of time for 4 weeks. Now, the feelings that they got from the air hunger did not change over the whole period. However, the individuals who that felt they were exposed to the feelings of air hunger but were able to remain calm over that period of time, over the 4 weeks, their panic symptoms significantly reduced, and they continuously reduced for a long period of time. The interesting thing here, however, if the actual session itself, the exercises themselves, provoked anxiety, so the dyspnea or the air hunger actually provoked feelings of anxiety inside, then the therapy itself was kind of hindered. So it's almost like there's a conditioning here, or a state-dependent memory learning going on, in terms of that the individual, like Pavlov's dog was given a food continuously. Then they removed the stimulus, and the dog continued to salivate at the same time they got the food. We can do this and condition ourselves to those internal sensations. So if, for example, breathing rate coming down and CO2 levels rising causes an air hunger in you, and that causes you to get anxiety, and that continuously happens, and you get fear around that, you be conditioned to those changes, so that even when the CO2 don't change, you get that feeling of air hunger, then air hunger means panic. But however, in the study, what this is suggested, by exposing that through exposure therapy, we can actually expose ourselves to internal sensations such as air hunger and overcome things such as panic. And even so, we can actually learn to actually decrease our breathing and increase our CO2 levels, so that we are returning to baseline breathing, functional breathing patterns. And it's a combination of two, but they are independent. So what does this mean for you? Well, in my 8-week program, or any of my training, that if you're an individual who has high levels of stress and anxiety, the Empowered Performer program is the one that we're most likely to do this. Around about week 4 or week 5, I introduced something called control work. And control work really is doing just what that study said. Like, from understanding the physiology and understanding the psychology that's going on, I created this kind of protocol that post-exercise, when CO2 levels are high, when the individual's kind of got a little bit of air hunger, then trying to control the breath and slow the breath down, to underbreathe, to expose yourself to that feeling of air hunger, but in a calm and controlled manner. The important thing here is staying relaxed, giving yourself some kind of positive self-talk, and using relaxation as a technique to expose yourself to these levels, so that you can decondition yourself from these sensations and use it as a training exercise. So if you're a person who struggles with anxiety, struggles with panic, or even has chronic stress, and you want to reach out, drop me a message. Also, I'm going to pop some free training below that you can learn the exact steps on how to reduce your stress by 50% in just 8 weeks. Hope you enjoyed the video. Any comments below, like, subscribe, and I'll get you to the next one.